Dr. Craig Manning, who's like a world-renowned sports psychologist, that's a power statement. So he would tell us, like, power statements are things you say to yourself to.
Welcome to Analog Leader. Our guest today is Skyler Halford. Skyler, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Fritz?
Fantastic. Tell us about you.
Oh man, well, I grew up in Utah, so I was born in Provo, raised in Orem, went to Timpanogos High School, and yeah, from Timpanogos, that's where like one of my first passions began is basketball. So that's kind of been a big part of my life. And then from there, I went on to play college basketball at a few places. So Utah State, Salt Lake Community College, and then finished at BYU. Served a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Brazil, and that was in between my time at Utah State and Salt Lake Community College. And then after basketball ended, I mean, I could tell you my whole life story if you want me to.
Of course.
I'll give you the short version. We can dive into whatever part you want to with that. But yeah, after like trying to figure out what to do after college basketball ended, I eventually decided to go back and become a physical therapist. So did that. Also started a basketball skills training academy called Halford Hoops because just couldn't let basketball go.
Sure.
And then we have a physical therapy clinic now that we run as well. So yeah, I'm married, have 4 kids, love them to death. They're the passion behind everything that I do. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell, I would say. That comes to my mind at first, yeah.
That's a quick nutshell. So there's a lot of things that I want to talk to you about there.
Yeah,
you know, and we share the basketball bug. I got over it when I was about 45 and I was playing City League ball and got hurt a couple of times and realized, okay, that part of my life is over.
That's the same thing my dad said. That's the same thing my dad said, yeah.
So now you tell us a little bit about your career.
Yeah. 3
different colleges?
Yeah, so, you know, when I was at Timpanogos, I was the second leading scorer in the state, and I thought, for sure, somebody's got to offer me a scholarship to go play somewhere, right? And that wasn't the case, at least a Division I scholarship. I did have an offer to go play at a junior college in Midland, Texas, but at that time I was like, I don't think I want to leave Utah yet. Like, I'm not ready to spread my wings. So I did know a coach he had been at the University of Utah, but just got hired on at Utah State. And he was like, come and walk on. So I went up to Utah State, had an amazing first year. I redshirted, so maintained the 4 years of playing eligibility. And then after that year, went on a mission and came back. And they were like, hey, we're not ready for you because we don't have a scholarship for you, which I thought they would. But so I was like, I don't want to walk on again. I need my school paid for. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, so they set me up at Salt Lake Community College. And I got a scholarship there, which was nice. And in my second year, I was a first-team All-American. And so after that, I had offers to lots of Division I schools. And so the dream came true. So in the beginning, it was like, yeah, that was my dream, right? Was to play Division I basketball. And at first, I was just like, well, okay, I guess I'll walk on there. You know, the whole pathway of like not knowing if you were going to make it was like constant, I feel like. And then finally, at the end of that second year of Salt Lake Community College, you know, the miracle it was a miracle actually that came true. So, yeah.
So then you obviously had a great career, 2-year career at Salt Lake Community College that led you to BYU on a full ride scholarship. Yeah. So when you showed up at BYU and you only have 2 years left of eligibility, tell me what that was like.
Oh, man. Oh, that's a great question because when I first got there, I had this vision, because I grew up a BYU fan my whole life, right? And I had this vision that, like, it was going to be this perfect scene. Everybody was it was going to be, like, the perfect place for me to be. Everybody's going to be 100% welcoming, right? And I learned that there's a lot of competitive people on that team that once I walked in the door as, like, a first-team All-American, they were kind of like, wait, who's this guy? Yeah. Wait a minute. Is this guy a threat to me being able to play? And I don't put that on any of my previous teammates. I just think that's just the competitive nature of every player. Every player that came to BYU, they were a first-team All-American or some sort of star in their own right, coming to the school. And so it was very different than what I was anticipating. It was like, okay, whoa, I've got to actually prove myself. I've got to make sure that, you know, these guys trust me, that, you know, they want me here. So yeah, that was a challenge that first year for sure. And only having 2 years to figure that out. Luckily, it took me about probably halfway through the first season before things really started clicking and went well. But yeah, it took some adjusting for sure.
Well, the reason I ask that question is that I think that quite often we think of a basketball team being a group of guys who are all in lockstep together and want to support one another and want to do well, and that's just not the case.
No.
Because you've got people who want to get time to start.
Yeah.
You've got people who are recruited right out of high school. They're looking at 4 years, that they're hoping to be a starter there for 4 years.
Yeah.
It was a different world than it is now, but typically people were looking at, I want my college to be paid for 4 years, and I want to be a starter on the team and maybe even have a chance at professional basketball at the end.
Absolutely.
That relates a lot to our guests that are, our audience that will be watching this show. When you show up to work, you think that everybody's there to just do a job and help the company be successful.
Yeah.
But everybody has selfish reasons that they want to perform, and they don't want someone else to perform better than them.
Yeah.
So if you wouldn't mind, expand on that just a little bit, and how you overcame that.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because my coaches, right, Dave Rose, Coach Pope, Coach Lacombe, Coach Nashif at BYU, when I was there, they often would talk about, and this is not just at BYU, I mean, all the schools I played at, the word agenda. Everybody has an agenda, and the true task of the team, they would just ram it into us. Like, if everyone is on the same page, that agenda that you have will be met and exceeded. And it was winning. It was like, if we win, everybody on this team will have way more than they even imagined that they wanted in the beginning. And I thought that's a challenge. It's not easy, because it's hard to say when, for example, like I was telling you, that first year I was there, I was coming off the bench. I ended up taking over a starting spot for one of those guys. Like, imagine being that guy who's saying, okay, I'm going to do this because coach thinks this is what's best for the team, but it feels very much to me like my agenda or my dreams are going to be shattered because of it. Yeah. So it's like, you have to have that trust in leadership, the coaching staff, and that what they actually want is for everybody to reach their goals. So it's a challenge, but I've seen it. You see it in sports all the time, where the teams that commit to that, whatever the culture, right? That's what often is brought up in sports is can a coach bring that culture in, and can people buy in, right? Can they buy into that culture? I think BYU's football team is a really good example of that too. My brother-in-law, he's over there coaching as an assistant safeties coach over there. And he was just talking to me recently about this, of how Coach Kalani Sataki, how he does such a good job of this culture idea, where, BYU maybe on paper, at least in last year or maybe years past, wasn't like the most talented group, but because he was able to build that culture, he gets people to buy in, and they're able to achieve way more than even their talent would say that they should be able to achieve, because they're doing it together. Anyway, so sorry, I'm kind of getting off tangent there, but that's, I think, the hard part if you're managing somebody, at a factory or in a space like mine where I'm working with physical therapists or other people, like, what does everybody want? And as their coach or as their supervisor or their leader, do I know what those agendas are? Do I know each of my players? Do I know each of my staff members in such a way that I can help them buy into that culture and show them that, yes, this is going to be good for you as well as everyone else in getting whatever it is that they want? That's a hard thing to do.
For sure.
But that's kind of the idea, I think, behind it. But
so coaches are one of the people that we look to, for guidance and everything else. But I like what you're talking about with culture. The coach really sets the tone for what the culture on a team's going to be. I know that you've played with coaches that you liked, and probably some that you didn't set that example before. What's it like to work with someone that maybe your vision and their vision isn't aligned?
It makes it hard, because and for me, I'm just thinking of like two separate coaches. Their styles are a little bit different, but the one that reached me, at least personally, was someone who reached out. They put their arm around me. They hey, how's it going? Or they also gave me opportunities to rise to an occasion. Hey, I remember Coach Pope. He's at Kentucky right now, but I remember one day we were walking into practice, and he just came up and put his arm around me, and there was another guy, Chase Fisher, and he just was like, you guys need to bring the spark today. This needs to happen from you two. And I remember that was just okay, like I'm gonna make that happen today. Like I felt like that sense of like responsibility, that sense of like, okay, the team is relying on me, and it was helpful for me. Like it didn't put pressure for me, and I'm sure he figured that out over time, like realizing that that's the way to talk to me to get me going and to help the rest of the group.
Yeah.
I don't know if that exactly answers that question, but
it does to a certain extent. And let me just kind of go around the side on that. So there's a key component there to that coach being able to reach you in that way that you talked about, that he knew what was important to you, and he actually had a relationship with you in a way that you knew how you wanted to be coached.
Yes.
Not every player wants to be coached the same.
Right. Some people do better with a coach reaming them, yelling, getting in their face. Some people shut down. And so, it's like there's different styles of receiving feedback, right? And people are motivated by different types of feedback. So
I think there's also a trap that a leader can walk into, a coach or a supervisor or anyone that's in a leadership position. People will tell you, hey, I like you to be direct with me. Just be direct with me. Just tell me what's on your mind. And if you do that, what they've done is they've set a trap, because they don't really want to be directly treated. It's a very rare individual that wants it.
Actually likes that.
Yeah, it's a very rare individual. But there's a lot of people that will tell you that that's what they want.
Yeah.
So then you have to discern, who is this person, and do they really want the direct approach?
Yeah. How have you dealt with that, Fritz? Because I'm just like curious about that, because I've had that same instance where when I ask people, like, how do you like to receive your feedback? Direct. Everyone says that. And I'm like, he's so right. How would you say for yourself, how do you tease that out of people that you're overseeing or working with?
It's a simple equation for me. I simply ask them, tell me about a time that a leader gave you feedback in a way that you liked it. Tell me how that went. Yes.
That's so funny, because a mentor of mine said, now that you're saying that, brought up the same thing, like in interviews, right? When you're talking to somebody, people know what to say. It's like, but bringing past experiences and asking them how those went are really good, because that's something that they can't really like cheat. They just tell you like how it went, what happened. So I like that. Yeah, no, that's good. Reaching back and telling about a time that they received feedback and they liked it. Okay.
Well, I think that's one of the things that as a leader you've got to get good at.
Right.
And we're going to talk about your coaching style, because I want to talk about the basketball camp, the Halford hoops that you have going, and how you tap into that with young kids. Right. But it's a matter of really having enough emotional awareness and emotional intelligence, if you will, that you ask questions that are open-ended, so that they feed you the answers that tell you who they are.
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell us what you do with Halford Hoops.
Yeah, so we've been doing that for 11 years now. When I graduated, like I said, from BYU back in 2015, and I just, I started training some kids on the side, and then now it's just grown to, I think we have like 130 some odd members now in our program, and it's first grade and up. So we have kids that play collegiately, that come in the summertime and work with us, and then we have, first through 12th grade that train with us year round. But yeah, there's a definite age range and gap there, but I love it. It's fantastic. We have, I think, 5 assistant trainers on staff now that help me. We also have like a videographer who comes in to capture some of the moments that we have with the kids. And we've got administrative staff that help on the back end, scheduling, just helping people with their memberships. And I'm kind of overseeing a lot of that. But my favorite part, obviously, is just being with the players and being in the moments with them where they're, they start here and then you watch that growth. That's really fulfilling and exciting for me, and watching things like click with the kids and them being even more excited and more passionate about the sport that they, have loved, and that's why they wanted to get into it in the first place, is there was something that sparked that love and passion. And then, anytime anybody gets good at something, it becomes even more fun. So yeah, I've done that. We've been doing that for a long time now. And yeah, I've just thoroughly enjoyed it. It's super gratifying, super fulfilling.
So if I have a child who shows some promise or even just some interest in basketball, how do I get a hold of you? How do we find you? What's the process?
So we have HalfordHoops.com. You can go there. There's a button just says apply for your first free session. So you can get your first session for free to see what it's like. And someone will reach out to you. It's our enrollment specialist. And our enrollment specialist basically outlines what's included in our program, talks about, because it's not just in-person training. We believe that, kids need to, because in the beginning for me, basketball training, it was like, okay, these guys got to get better. I want to get them to be a pro, right? But then I quickly learned that it's more about life lessons for me than anything. And basketball and sports are just so good at teaching those life lessons to these kids. So it's like, you don't just show up and clock in and clock out. There's stuff to do at home. There's stuff to do to get you further in your basketball journey, right? Or your career. So I try to often like parallel what these kids are learning in basketball to life. So yeah, we offer like at-home training programs. Like, hey, you need to be doing your homework. And then we give rewards for kids who get the most points. So we do a point system like for them doing their homework at home. And we have mental strength training programs that we do once a month where we all join together on a call. So it's pretty comprehensive when it comes to kids' development, but it's more geared over the years. It's more geared towards, teaching these kids principles that are going to last them a lifetime, as opposed to the less than 1% of kids that are actually going to go on to play collegiately or professionally, right. Which is great. We help kids do that too. But that's kind of like one of our big goals with Halford Hoops is just teaching those life lessons through the sport.
So you come from a great basketball experience and all kinds of different levels and that. A lot of people are good at basketball. Yeah. And they say, I want to teach, I want to develop other kids. I want to start something like Halford Hoops. Yeah. And then they just fall flat on their face because they don't get in the minutia of running a business. Yeah. Now, that seems like that's a completely different set of skills that you need in order to make that the business that you have turned it into, and coaching basketball. Those are two different skill sets. And how do you differentiate those? When are you Skyler, the manager, and when are you the coach, Halford? Yes,
as soon as I walk onto those lines on the court, like I become coach, and that's kind of like a sanctuary for me in some ways because I can leave, the stresses of, because there are stresses of being an entrepreneur. It's natural. I think it's normal too, but that's like a sanctuary for me where I can leave the world behind and just enter in, be coach, hanging out with the players, and that's really fun. But then once I leave those lines, I'm a lot more than just that business owner manager, right? There's also the line drawn once I step inside my house. Yes, my wife lets me know that. But yeah, so it's being able to put on the hat of like, okay, I'm passionate. I love these kids. I want to help them so much. And then also like, okay, now I've got to step over and look at these numbers. Are we going to make sure we can provide still a good program and situation for these kids, or a good environment for them, which deals with numbers, it deals with making tough decisions, it deals with hiring, firing, it deals with a lot of hard things sometimes too, but you do that because in the end it's going to teach the core value is that it's teaching these kids these life lessons that are going to be important for them forever, really. Right. So yeah, they're maintaining those two sides and being able to do that. I enjoy it going back and forth because it gives me, my job doesn't become monotonous. Like it's just there's variety to it.
I imagine that it's a little bit difficult on either side of that line because on this side you want every kid that wants to have an experience, you want to provide them with whatever they need, whether they can afford it or not. Yeah. But on the other side, if you're not profitable, you can't stay in business and you can't provide for anyone. 100%. So there has to be a line where you say, we have to make money at this. It can't just be altruistic. It has to be profitable as well. How do you reconcile that?
Yeah, it's, value is in the eyes of like the customer, right? Like we provide a service and knowing the numbers of what we need to do to provide that really good service, I have that in my mind. And so I know we need to set this benchmark of, right? And so we do have some other things. Like we have some online programs that are relatively, low cost for people to get into. We post content every day with drills and stuff because we want to help people, right? Because there's an element of business to that too, right? You got the top of your funnel and wanting to get people in who may just be learning about you for the first time, right? And it's like they're not going to buy from you or ready to buy from you right away. And there could be people who might not be ready but have the funds to do it. And there might be people who really aren't ready but also don't have the funds and may never have the funds. So you try to meet as much as you can. You're never going to, and at least in my experience thus far, you're never going to make everyone happy. You're going to do your best, but you're never going to make everyone happy. So yeah, because I also, one of the things that I've been learning that right now is like every decision, I'm trying to make all my decisions based on, is it good for the company? Is it good for the people in the company that are working for us? And is it good for our customer? And I try to hit all three of those things at the same time. And sometimes, right, there will be things that hit one or two and don't hit the third. And so I'm like, okay, we can't quite make that decision. We need to do something else to figure out a way to hit all those three areas. So, yeah, I mean, for me, it's basically like you establish that pattern. And then if people decide not to, I don't take it personally. I also don't make it so I feel like that person isn't going to have a great life because they didn't work with us. There's lots of great things in life, lots of great passions, but yeah, it's a good question, but that's that's how my mind goes about that.
I love that you've narrowed it down to those three key items, because that's really, any business needs to meet those three key items in order to be successful. And the fact that you've done that in a basketball camp really shows that there's not a lot of difference between any kind of businesses out there when you're dealing with people and profits.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree.
So before we get off the basketball topic, when I was young, I played high school basketball and a little bit of college. One of the things that I heard Bobby Knight say was that the free throw was the one thing that you can always count on. It's called the free throw because it's free. There's never anybody in your face. There's never anything that changes. The distance of the foul line is the same, the height of the rim. He said, if you don't get good at free throws, it's your fault. And so I knew, I'm 6'7", and I played center in high school, and so I thought, I'm going to be at the foul line a lot. I never want to miss a foul shot. So I worked on that constantly. After practice, I'd stand there on that line until I made 50 straight free throws before I could go home.
Amazing.
Now, fast forward to today's game, and I see guys that are a lot bigger than me, Shaquille O'Neal, for instance, that can't hit a free throw to save themselves. And my wife, she's always frustrated with me because I'll watch BYU or whoever, and I'm like, why aren't these guys making their free throws?
Yeah, exactly.
Tell me about you were an 88% free throw shooter at BYU. One of the highest in the NCAA. How did you do it, and why?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, it's very much muscle memory. Every coach will tell you, same routine every time, right? Because there's a like a psychological side of it too, like the mental side is alone, let alone the physical side, having good mechanics when you shoot it. But it's more of like, can you get your brain into that like state? Some people will call like a flow state when everything just feels really easy and
in the zone.
Yeah, in the zone, or like a trigger, right? Yeah. So like that's kind of essentially what that pattern is. Like mine was 1, 2, 3 dribbles. I would say something in my head and then I would shoot it. And obviously there needs to be practice there, but yeah, like my mindset was, there is nothing that can affect me in here, right? Like people are yelling at me, whatever, screaming, yelling, but like nobody can come up to me and push me, shove me, block my shot. You have that like assurance that it's just the same thing, just like you said, like it's the same thing every time. And so for me, it just became like, so what I would say, this kind of comes back to like, I used to say this when I was a kid. So I go 1, 2, 3, I can make this shot. I am positive at everything. I don't know why I chose that when I was a kid, but that was the phrase that I chose. And, I kept it a secret when I was a kid because I thought it was like this secret thing. But then as I got older, I started telling people, and I realized working with Dr. Craig Manning, who's like a world-renowned sports psychologist, that that's a power statement. So he would tell us like power statements are things you say to yourself to kind of get you in that right frame of mind. Like maybe you have a bad day or you have something that's going wrong in your life. The way I think about it is like you're spiraling down. It's okay to feel that way, but what's going to help you snap out of that? Because we want to try and stay out of that downward spiral. Because some people will go really far down, and it's like, well, if I can go here and then I have something to get me right back here and I've only, gone down that much, that's good. So like my whole life, I didn't really realize that was a power statement I was using. I was teaching my brain that's that moment to get me right back to where I was. And I think that, looking back and what I've learned with Dr. Manning, that naturally just kind of got me in the right mindset to perform the action that I wanted to perform. My brain knew it was time for that. So it was that power statement. And there can be lots of things you can use as power statements. And I quite frankly think everybody should have a power statement, no matter what they do. Because energy and enthusiasm and getting in that zone is important no matter what you're doing.
Right.
So yeah, for me, that's what I felt was the key for me to being good at free throws, was simply that confidence and that that statement and the practice behind it. Obviously, you mentioned 50 free throws in a row,
Sure.
making them before you left. There's that side of it, but I think the mental side of it is what helps you like calm the nerves when tensions might get high, games on the line. It could be you're down 1, it could be you're up 20. It doesn't matter. It's the same type of shot. That's the kind of mindset I try to get myself in and then shoot it.
I think the power statement that's a real genius bit of advice for our listeners, because when you say things positively to yourself, you have a tendency to believe it. Our self-talk is one of the things that we're horrible at. I mean, we're just awful at it.
Yeah.
We're constantly beating ourselves up and saying, why did you do that? That was so stupid.
Yep.
And what happens is we believe it.
Yeah.
When we have a negative statement, we believe it.
Yeah.
If we have a power statement, we believe that too. So that helped you get into a state of mind where I can make this shot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Dr. Manning, he describes it as the law of occupied space. Like, and I basically boiled it down to like faith and fear. They can't coexist in the same mind. You choose one or the other, right? Everybody's probably heard the story like which wolf is going to win, right? The one that you feed. And so I think it's really important that power statement gets you there, because like you said, I think it's really natural for us as human beings. It's just like if we leave that stage up there in your brain empty, negative things automatically go in there. It takes concerted effort and energy to put that positive thing there first.
Right.
So yeah, and I'm a big believer in that. If you let that negative thing come in there, then the positive has no room it can't be there, or vice versa.
Right.
So, yeah.
So I think that's really critical for people who lead other people, to make sure that they're always in the right mindset to lead people. Sometimes we're having a bad day. Sometimes things aren't going our way.
For
I'm
sure.
sure when you're coaching kids at the Halford Academy, there's days when you're just...
I walk in, I'm tired. I'm like, oh man, there's 12 first graders in here right now. Can I handle that? I hope we have a policy where we limit it to 10. So, but
12 would be a lot.
That would be insane. Like there's days like that, yeah, where you're just like, I don't know if I can make it. So I think in reference to that power statement, it's like, can I flip that switch on? And sometimes it's a mental mindset. Sometimes it's like recently we were having our mental strength training call with our players, and we talked about like reset. It's just like an acronym for being able to, like, something bad happens or you're in this negative state, how do you get out of it? And one of those is to engage your body, one of those E's. And I think that's another one where it's like, I try and be really like clap, like just a clap, like, hey, let's go. And it kind of sparks it. I remember one of my coaches at Salt Lake Community College, Coach Paul Marble. Shout out to Coach Marble, he's the best. But he would say, like, he would talk about how there's research behind just like raising your hands. Just simply raising and holding your hands above your head, and how that can just change how you feel. So like just little things like that. Maybe you're about to go into a meeting that you're just like not looking forward to, and you're in the bathroom just staring at the mirror, just like, oh gosh, okay, what am I gonna do? Just raising those arms up. I've got this. And that's a phrase that Dr. Manning talks about is a really easy power statement people can use for themselves is, I've got this, or I can do this. Yeah. And just seeing yourself say that, arms up, there's something about it, right, that they've studied and shows that those things can help you take on that challenge that you may not be feeling like you're ready for.
Well, that's some great advice you've given our listeners about that. And I hope that people will gather that the power statement along with the practice. The practice has to be done as well.
Yeah.
If you never practice talking with someone during a difficult moment, you'll never be good at it.
Yes.
And that practice starts with how do you talk about to yourself in that difficult moment? What are the things you say to your children in those difficult moments, your spouse, whatever it might be?
Yeah.
How do you prepare yourself with a good self-setting power statement and practice? Yeah,
absolutely. I know. We tell our players it's like, because there's some research behind visualization. So we talk a lot about that in our program too, where it's like, okay, I want you to sit there, close your eyes, and imagine that ball going in, right? And doing that 5 to 10 minutes a day can be really helpful. But it's like, does that mean you can just sit down in your house all day and do that for hours, right? Like, no, you got to get on the court, right? There's a balance, I think, in all things. You can't just, you got to have like, in each area, you've got to work on it. And so, the practice will never be gone. You've got to actually do the thing that you're trying to get good at.
That's awesome. Awesome advice. So you also are a physical therapist.
Yes. Yep.
Tell me about that. You run a physical therapy company. Tell me a little bit about that.
Absolutely.
About that part of your
so
world.
I graduated from Rocky Mountain University of Health Professions in Provo back in 2021, and then we started the practice right after that. We did it out of my basement until we had our third child, and my wife said, "You got to go find somewhere else."
So you had all the equipment and everything in the basement.
And it was like an 8x10, 8x12 room, and we bought some little like foam pads and a bench and some dumbbells. We had a courtyard out back where we'd go out and run with my clients and do some other stuff where we needed a little bit more room. Those were some fun days in the beginning, and we've grown now to where we have 2 locations, one in North Utah County and one in South Utah County, and it's been fun building that out. And we're cash pay clinics, so we're a little bit different where, and I'm not here to debate about what's better, an insurance model or a cash pay model, but for us, it just felt like that's how we could give the best treatment to our clients rather than letting insurance dictate how we treated them. We just wanted to treat them how we felt like was the best way to treat them. And I've been in insurance models with some of my clinical rotations as a student. I just, I felt restricted in some way. So I wanted to do the cash way, and that's been super helpful for us. We get to spend a lot of one-on-one time with our patients, which allows us in some ways to be leaders for them too, giving them advice, helping coach them, getting back to their goals, whatever that is. We deal with a lot of endurance runners, so it's like, okay, we've got a goal of running a marathon. Or I had a lady come in yesterday and she says, "Skyler," because her first goal was to run a 5K, and she's like, "Skyler, I think I want to do a sprint triathlon." I'm like, "Let's do it," And so we start whiteboarding and drawing out things and talking about strategy. And so I really like sitting down and planning things with people and showing them that their goals mean something to me and helping them achieve that goal. And it's really fun when you have a client like we had another gal who was a mom who wanted to prove to her kids that she could run a half marathon. Not only did she run a half marathon, but we got her to commit to a full, and she ran the full. So those types of things where you can share those moments with patients is super fulfilling, and knowing that you had a piece of it. Obviously, they're doing all the work. You're just a piece of the puzzle, but it's fun to be a part of that puzzle. And so we've been doing that for the last 5 years. And we plan on continuing to grow and helping more people and as many people as we can, really.
So we found a pattern here. Again, this is a situation where you're a physical therapist and you get a lot of joy and fulfillment out of working with the patients.
Yeah.
But on the other side of it, you've got 2 locations. How many employees do you have?
Yeah, so we have, for our PT side, we have 2 administrative assistants, we have a full-time physical therapist, and our videographer right now for our PT side of things. And there's a lot to that. I'm learning a lot right now about motivations and what keeps people around, because I obviously want these people to stay with us. We need them. And so learning what makes them happy. And also, as an entrepreneur, I get to know these people and their families, and it's like, oh wow, you're providing for your family. There's a lot behind that. And sometimes that can feel like pressure, but it also is motivating, exciting, because I know I'm offering something like that to somebody and providing that kind of opportunity for them so they can provide for their family, or they can fulfill a dream that they've wanted to fulfill, being a physical therapist, for example. So there's different types of fulfillment in that side too.
So here you are with people who are counting on you to run a profitable business so that they can feed their family and maybe live out a few of the dreams that they have, whether it's physical therapy or videography or whatever it might be.
Right.
You and I were talking on the phone prior to this, and I asked you a little bit about how you get the best out of people, and you told me about your 1 to 10 scale.
Oh, yes.
Tell our listeners about that.
I learned that in PT school, and it was only 1-day class, but that class was so valuable. I remember it to this day, and I thought that it was just so interesting. So I've used it ever since, where and we use this, for example, with patients, and then also with the people that we work with. And I use it even I don't use it with my wife at home because she already knows, but she knows what I'm getting at.
Good idea.
But basically, so for example, a patient comes in and we tell them the plan that we're going to execute with them. And it's 0 to 10, 10 out of 10, this is a slam dunk home run plan for you to get back to your marathon. And 0 is thanks, but no thanks. Where are you at? And somebody might say, oh, I'm at an 8. Hey, I really appreciate that. I appreciate that number, and 8's a good number, but I'm just curious, why isn't it a 7 or a 6? And then they kind of pause, what do you mean? What? Why is it not lower? Well, because I think this is good, and this is good, and this is good about it. Oh, great, I appreciate that. I'm also curious, would get it to a 9 or a 10? You know, and then now they're telling you what might be missing. What is it about? They're dreaming, right? And maybe I don't know their dream, and I want to figure that out so I can help them. Same thing with somebody who, you know, is working for me. We have weekly check-ins, right? They write down things, and they literally, the first question is 0 to 10. Where are you at right now? And so it's like they fill that out, and I get to see if it's an 8, if it's a 9, if it's a 10. And then if it's, you know, if it's one of these numbers, it's not a 10, I reach out to them and I'm like, hey, I appreciate you leaving your weekly check-in. I loved such and such thing that you left on your sheet, but I'm just curious, like, why wasn't it a 7 or a 6, right? Or why wasn't it a 9 or a 10? And then I've had some really great conversations, like one of our administrative assistants recently, she just didn't feel like, she recently graduated with her master's in business, like super awesome, very talented. And she came to me saying, like, I just feel like I have so much more to give. And I just was blind. You know, I've got so many things going on, trying to figure out all these different things for the business, where she needed to relay that message to me. And that was from like an 8, right, that she gave out of it. And then we had a conversation, and now we have her doing stuff for like planning events. She wants to be like our event planner and client satisfaction. And I'm just like, this is amazing. Like, we need somebody like that. You find things that like, you didn't, well, I knew we needed that, but I just didn't have time to sit down and do it. And she's like, I'm ready to go. I'll take this on. I'm going to take this as a responsibility. Now she's super motivated. Right? And she's diving into it now, and it's helping the business grow. It's helping her. It's helping our clients. Like, right? Does it help the company? Does it help the people that work for us? And does it help the client or the customer? So just having those conversations, I think, with people as a coach or a leader or a CEO or whatever, like, I think those are really valuable, because I think you're like, what you want as a CEO or supervisor, they can give it to you, but sometimes you have to have those conversations with them or know if they're at an 8 or a 7 as opposed to a 9 or a 10. So
I love that so much, because I think that quite often, you know, one of my pet peeves in industry is employee evaluations. You have a yearly evaluation, and you have to sit down and go through a yearly evaluation. And usually, you know, the company says, well, you can't rate them the highest, or else they've got no room to grow, and you don't want them to be the lowest, or else they should be fired. And
right.
So you've got this game that you're playing with.
Right.
We're always looking for, you know, how do we raise the score? And the way that you ask that question is just genius. When someone says, I believe that I'm at an 8, you know, what's your job satisfaction? Between 1 and 10, where are you at? Yeah. I'm an 8. Well, why isn't it a 6? That's a question that gives them that they're like, why is he asking me that? But then they tell you the positive things that they like about the job, and it helps them understand what it is that gives it that 8 score. And if you ask that first before you say, why isn't it a 10, then they start giving you all the positive things about it. Then you ask them, well, why isn't it a 10? Then they can give you the constructive feedback. They're in the right mindset to do that. So I think it's something that all of our listeners should take out of this conversation, is that when someone gives you a score, ask them why it's not lower.
Yeah.
And they'll give you the positives. Yeah. And then ask them why it's not higher, and they'll give you the opportunities.
Yeah, because sometimes you think you know what they like about the job, and then they say it, and you're like, oh, that's the positive of this job. Okay, and then it kind of helps too, potentially, with recruiting. Like, we can offer these things that people have said they liked, right? And it gives you information to then, I mean, I like thinking about marketing too, and I'm just like, how can I market to recruit? And like, what is it about this job that's attractive? And people will tell you, your clients who you work with in physical therapy will tell you why they came to you. Like, what do they like about it? You may have a vision and thought of what is positive about the job or positive about your product that you're selling, but none of it really matters other than what the actual client says is important, right? Or what the people who are working for you say is important. So yeah, that's another thing that I was thinking about as you were talking about that, is just like, yeah, obviously wanting to know like what the positive things are that keep them in the job, and have them voice that, and have them be in a good mind, like you said, a good mindset of like, oh yeah, I do like this job. There are a lot of good things about it. And then coming back with a constructive criticism. So I think there's a lot to that too. Yeah, you could even take to marketing. But
so the other thing that you brought up that's really smart is you do weekly check-ins.
Yeah.
A lot of people would say that's excessive. Something I did as a young supervisor, I did weekly check-ins with everybody who worked for me. Yeah. Because I think that it's important to touch everyone. Why do you do that, and how does it go? And tell me a little bit about that.
Because I mean, I think it comes back, my mind goes to, any relationship you have with somebody, you need to have, like, even just my wife, my spouse, like, we need to touch base and say, how are things going? Like, because if not, and they just let that thing fester, if something is bothering them about the job, about your relationship, whatever it may be, and that festers for a while, and then all of a sudden, boom, something blows up. Somebody quits their job on that day that could have been avoided. Now you're dealing with all these other things, or you say something and now HR's involved or whatever, right? Like there's lots of like scenarios where it's like, okay, well, if we have just weekly check-in, it kind of keeps the temperature where everybody likes it, and so for me, like, I mean, even, and no, they're not gonna be perfect at it. Like, you give them instructions, and I have people who sometimes don't fill it out. And so I have to reach out, occasionally and say, hey, I really would appreciate if you fill this out for me. And obviously if somebody doesn't do that, like, you kind of have to talk about, like, look, we really got to do this, or we might have to start doing something else. That you don't want to get into those types of situations. But I feel like for the most part, if those questions are there and outlined to you first introduce it as like, this is something that I want to make sure helps you. This is all about you. Like, I want to make sure that you love your job. I want to make sure that you're happy where you're at and you have joy and fulfillment in what you're doing. That's what this is meant for. And if they can feel that and see that from their leader, then I think, one, that makes them more willing to fill it out. And then two, maybe that happens less often, right? That they don't fill it out. And occasionally people are busy, right? So things happen, but it's just nice to have that weekly check-in. That administrative assistant I was telling you about, like, ever since she gave that 8, she's just been like 10s lately. So it's good. Like, I can just quick check-ins and she's happy to report it. And so I think it just makes, like I said, the temperature just stays at a comfortable level for everybody.
I think one of the worst kind of supervisors you can have, or managers, whatever whoever you report to, is the one who says, "Hey, can I talk to you?" And your mind starts spinning out of control. Oh no, why do they want to talk to me? What did I do wrong? Am I in trouble?
For sure.
That you never want to be the kind of supervisor who says to someone, "Hey, can I talk to you?" Right. And they start worrying about it.
Yes.
And if you do weekly check-ins, when you say, "Hey, can I talk to you?" They're going to be like, "Yeah, he talks to me all the time. It's a weekly check-in."
Yeah, this is a regular thing that happens, right? Yeah, absolutely. And they almost kind of know too that, oh, he saw my 8. He's probably, I'm excited to have this conversation with him, because I know before, when I had this conversation with him, we fixed things and things got better. So they're more willing then, even after that first time that you've done it and you do it well, to where they're like excited, motivated again. If something else in the future comes up, they're like, I know I can tell my, supervisor, whoever, or Skyler, like, I know I can go to him and he really has my best interest and wants to help me. And so then those little things that fester, they bring them to you. They're ready to bring them to you. And you, as a supervisor, as an owner, you want to hear about those things sooner rather than later, so you can fix things and so things keep functioning well. So, yeah.
The best work groups, the best culture in a work group, are ones where the frontline workers come to the boss and say, "Hey, I need to talk to you."
Yeah. Instead
of the boss going to the workers and saying, "Hey, I need to talk to you."
Absolutely. And every boss would probably prefer that. Like, they don't want to have to be nitpicking and micromanaging and all this stuff. They would rather have a team who can do it on their own, and they're willing to come to you, and you guys have that open relationship. Yeah.
Well, you've given us some great advice here today, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
a few things I want to cover before we leave.
Yeah.
First off, BYU basketball, how are they going to do this year?
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm really excited. I mean, every year I'm excited. Last year I was extremely excited with AJ DeBonsa. Now with the Wizards, I mean,
that's a generational player.
Yeah, exactly. You get the #1 player in the country. But I'm excited about the talent they have. I mean, we've got a guy so Dean Rooker is on their team, and he trained with us growing up. And so, like, I'm really excited to see him. There's personal connections there. BYU does a great job of, like, bringing alumni in. Every year they have an alumni event, so I'm looking forward to getting in there and shaking hands again with old friends. And so, yeah, I'm extremely excited. I think Coach Kevin Young has done a fantastic job in there and really raised the level of what BYU basketball is on a really national, global level, and they're becoming a powerhouse of their own, right? And that makes me a proud, alumni. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm hoping they have a really good season.
When BYU made the move to the Big 12, I thought, oh, they are going to get buried. This is not a wise move, And in every sport, really, they've really rose to the occasion.
They really
Part of
have.
that has to do with recruiting and coaching and everything else. But I think that it's almost like there's an expectation at BYU now that we are good at this.
Yes. Yeah, it's a philosophy. It's absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Where it's like we set the bar high and there's an expectation there, and so everybody rallies around like, okay, well, if that's where we need to be, let's all figure out how to get there. And obviously that comes with recruiting high level talent and recruiting, really great, high level players in the program to be able to do that. Not just in the basketball program, but administratively, there's so many people that go into something like that. Obviously, that I run my little business of like, what is there? I think like 10 of us or something like that. But there's, you talk about companies that have 48,000 people. I'm just like, whoa. And then these teams and universities. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to it.
That's great. That's great. So and one thing I forgot to ask you about, if people want to see you as a physical therapist, how do they do that?
Yeah, so like basketball is halfordhoops.com. Just add PT at the end of that, halfordhoopspt.com, and that's where they can find us. And they get a free discovery call to see if they're a good fit for what we do. So we have, a quick conversation, 10, 15 minutes, where we go over their injury, go over their issues and their problems, what their goals are, what they're trying to reach, and then they come in for an evaluation, and we walk them through our checklists of making sure that everything's functioning the way it should or what's not and how to fix it, and really getting to the root cause of their issues and then getting them back to what they love. So yeah, honestly, you go online, you fill out there's a request form and you tell us a little bit of information about yourself, and then we call you, reach out to you, and yeah, we take it from there. But yeah, like I said, we love meeting new people who have these high goals and things that they want to get back to, because it's really exciting for them and for us too to work with them.
Great. We'll link to both of those sites on the description of this podcast. One last thing I'd like you to give us an answer for.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people who watch our podcast and listen to our podcast that are new supervisors, and we try to help those people build the analog skills, the presence that they need in order to build trust with their teams and become the kind of leader that people can count on. So what advice would you give to someone who was an hourly worker yesterday, but today they were promoted to be the supervisor over 12 hourly associates? They are now no longer a worker, they are the supervisor over
coach.
12 people. They're the coach of 12 people. What's the best advice you can give to them so that they can come out of the blocks on day one and be successful?
Yeah, I think for me it's knowing who your people are, and on a greater level than just what they do for you at work. And that can be hard because it takes time, it takes effort, but I feel like building those relationships really helps them open up, and you guys are able to actually help each other do what both of you want to do and get to where you want to get. And that supervisor, what motivated them to be so good to get promoted to do that, right, is different than what's motivating those other 12. Each one of those 12 probably has a different motivation. And you as their supervisor, I would encourage you to find out what that motivation is. Ask them 0 to 10, right? What gets them going? What wakes them up in the morning, gets them excited to go to work versus what doesn't? And how can you figure out ways to get them excited, right? To get them happy about where they're at and what they're doing. And I think that starts with just knowing them, understanding that they're people too, and they have things that make them tick that are different than what makes you tick and makes you excited and happy, and being able to say, okay, I'm going to try and view this in their shoes so I can help them get to where they want to go. Because as a supervisor, I would imagine that it's challenging because everybody is different and has different motivations. So getting to know your people, I would say.
So you touched on something that's really important for a new supervisor to understand. They got promoted because of the work that they did.
Yeah.
And as a self-starter in the workplace who excels, you're someone who comes in and doesn't need a lot of motivation. The people that you work with didn't get promoted because they're not you.
Right. Exactly.
And knowing that they're different and their motivations are different is really the key to that. And I think that's a really smart way to look at it. Get to know your people. What advice would you give them to get to start that conversation where they get to know them at a different setting as a supervisor? Absolutely.
Like we started doing this year. So I talked with a mentor of mine, and he said one of the things that one of the best investments you can make with the people that you supervise or work with is doing some sort of event with them. He was like, take your people to places, even if it's like, and depending on how much of if you have a budget for that or not, I don't know, but like anything, go, like, so we decided that every quarter we're going to do something. So like this quarter, we've invited all of our employees, our customers, we're going to the Sarah Pool in Orem, like at the end of August here, and just something to give back to them, right? Something that's completely not work related. Like we went axe throwing the quarter before, and then we went out to Tucanos, like, just like, and it doesn't have to be things that are crazy expensive. I mean, surprisingly, it wasn't as much as I thought it would be to rent out a pool. Like, I mean, there's things you can do, just that camaraderie, right? And I would just encourage people to find ways to get your team together, like outside of just the work situation, if possible. Because I feel like that builds a camaraderie, builds a team that builds that kind of trust and getting to know people too, where it's not just like, okay, hey, do this thing that we do every day. Here's this meeting that we do every week. But there's like, oh wait, my supervisor's like a human. Like he or she's actually really cool. Like I actually like being around this person or whatever, right? So like trying to develop that dynamic, I guess, is as a team, and having that camaraderie. So doing things, you can choose the frequency, or depending on what you can or can't do in your company. But I would encourage you to do something like that. I mean, you could find out that a bunch of your people like football, and you invite them over to your place to have some milkshakes or something. I don't know, and watch a football game. It could go a lot of different ways, but that I've seen that help us become closer as a company, and not just feel like we're just work associates, I guess.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on and talking to our clients about the things that have made you successful. You have an unbelievable story to tell, and I'm just honored that you would be a guest here on our show.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that, Fritz. I appreciate it a lot.
No, thank you very much. That's Analog Leader with our guest, Skyler Halford. Thanks for tuning in to Analog Leader. To learn more, check the links out below, sign up for our Substack, and check us out online at analogleader.com.